One last ride. Texas Tech at Texas. The Red Raiders and the Longhorns are set to play their last game for the foreseeable future. Can the Red Raiders go down to Austin and ruin the Longhorns College Football Playoff hopes? It's going to be a tall task, and the Red Raiders are going to have to play their best game of the season in all three facets of the game. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long. Yes, the regular season is coming to an end, but there is a bowl game. We'll be talking a ton about it, and don't get it twisted. Joey McGuire and crew are killing it on the recruiting trail, so we'll have plenty of videos about that as well. So if you want to stay in the know on Texas Tech football and join one of the most engaging Texas Tech communities on YouTube, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. And before we get into today's preview, I want to hear from y'all. Leave your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for Texas Tech at number 7 Texas. Right now, the spread, and we'll talk about a little bit more in depth later on, 12.5 to 14, depending on the sports book you look at. Let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below. All right, let's set the scene as we head down to Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium on Black Friday, November 24th for a 6:30 p.m. Central Time kickoff. It'll be a nationally televised game on ABC with Sean McDonough and Dusty Dvorak calling the game for the Red Raiders and the Longhorns. The history between these two teams, as I mentioned, this is the last game on the docket we know for sure will happen between the Red Raiders and the Longhorns for, well, the foreseeable future, right? Texas Tech and Texas will meet for the 73rd time in their history and for the 64th consecutive year. The Longhorns own the all-time record 54-18, which includes a 32-7 mark down in Austin. Now, 6 of the past 8 meetings between these two schools have been decided by at least one possession, right? You think about some of those outcomes. Obviously, you think about the Jakeem Grant run down with Patrick Mahomes as quarterback down in Austin, Cliff Kingsbury going crazy on the sideline. You think about last year's win against Texas in week number 4 for the Red Raiders in terms of 2 of their wins in that, right? But this is really what we're looking at in terms of Texas Tech will be searching for their 3rd win, right? In the last 5 visits to Austin. I mentioned that Jakeem one. Obviously, last year's was out in Lubbock in year number 1 of Joey McGuire. It'll be no easy task for the Red Raiders because this Longhorns defense, and really their offense too, this is the most complete Longhorn team we've seen in at least a decade. But this defense is no joke. They've allowed 127 rushing yards combined. Let me repeat that. 127 rushing yards combined in their last 3 Big 12 games, an average of 42 rushing yards allowed by this Texas defense. They are all kinds of legit people. All right, let's jump into the injury news, though, for Texas Tech because there's a lot of positives for Texas Tech on this front. According to Joey McGuire in his press conference on Monday, the 20th, he said that they expect Miles Price, Tyler Owens, Jalen Hutching, and Bryce Ramirez to play against the number 7 Texas Longhorns. The lone game time decision will be that of Taylor Demerson, a.k.a. Rabbit. He had a groin injury. They're going to progress him through the week, and hopefully he can play. But right now, it's a TBD game time decision type deal for one of the best players on that Texas Tech defense. Let's look at some of the players that you need to know for Texas Tech going into this Texas matchup. Obviously, we're starting at the quarterback position because Baron Morton has been phenomenal, really, in terms of winning games when he is the quarterback for Texas Tech. 5-0 in games he starts and finishes for the Red Raiders. The big thing here is he going to be able to capitalize against this Texas Tech secondary in the sense that Texas is going to be able to stop the run, right? They're going to probably send an extra guy into the box, even with that stout running defense that they have, to stop one of the best running backs, not only in the Big 12, but in the country, in Taj Brooks, the guy that leads the country, according to PFF, in missed tackles, right? In terms of forced missed tackles, I should say. Is Barron going to be able to capitalize downfield in that regard, right? Is he going to be able to get the ball to Bradley on the outside? Is he going to be able to get the ball to Price, Aiken, so on and so forth? That's the way I think Texas Tech is going to have a chance to beat Texas. Now, don't get it twisted. You're going to have Taj Brooks in there as well, and he's the next guy we're going to talk about. I'm not expecting Taj to get to 100 yards, but if he can get to that 80 range and even a little closer to 100, I think the Red Raiders' chances of winning this game increase quite a bit. Now, again, am I going to pick them to win? You'll have to see here in just a second. But I do think Taj is going to be a vital piece in this, not only in the run game, but even maybe more importantly in the pass game, because he is going to be needed as an extra blocker in there for the Red Raiders and also a safety valve for Behren Morton if that Texas pass rush does get past the Texas Tech offensive line, right? And speaking of the Texas Tech offensive line, we talk about them a lot, right? And they've had games where they've looked good. They've had games where they've looked really bad. Let's just call it what it is, right? This is the most important unit for Texas Tech in this game, because if they cannot even just remotely open a hole for Taj Brooks to run through the left to right tackle, ABC gap, whatever you want, or allow them to set the edge and get outside, it could be a long day at the office for the Texas Tech offense, right? And we just talked about it. 127 rushing yards allowed over their last 3 games combined. 3 games, 42 yards on average, Texas has allowed to their last 3 opponents rushing the football. The offensive line is going to be pivotal. Now for the Red Raiders, also Jalen Hutchings and Rabbit, right? These are 2 of the best players on the Texas Tech defense. They're 2 of your seniors. They're their go-to guys, right, in the secondary and then on the defensive line. Are you going to have them? And if so, what's their availability level, right? Are they kind of on a snap count? Do they want to be, a little cautious with them, right? In terms of, hey, they were injured last week, shorter week. What's the game plan with them, right? Those are 2 guys that I'm interested to see for Texas Tech in terms of if they do play, just how much. Now, on the Texas side, it starts with Quinn Ewers, right? And he's surrounded by a ton of weapons. The Texas offensive line is the best in the Big 12. I don't think that's up for debate. But he's missed some time, just like Behren Morton has this year, but he's back and healthy. Tech has to make him uncomfortable. Simple and plain. If you can get to him and force him to step up in the pocket, I think Texas Tech will have a linebacker there in terms of whether that's, Bryce Ramirez, whether that's Ben Roberts, Ty Canna, whoever it is. Because remember, in this matchup, to preserve his red shirt, there will be no Jacob Rodriguez for the Red Raiders at the linebacker spot. That's a huge loss for the Texas Tech defense, especially with the injuries in terms of Jalen Hutchings and Rabbit that I just mentioned, right? But if you can get Quinn Ewers up in the pocket, force him up a little bit, and really try and make him uncomfortable and move his feet a little faster than he wants, you got a chance, right? Now, Texas always seems to have a multitude and stable of running backs that are just absolutely ridiculous. Unfortunately, Jonathan Brooks, again, arguably one of the best running backs in the Big 12 alongside Taj, he unfortunately tore his ACL a couple weeks back, but they have CJ Baxter, a true freshman running back, and he's the number 1 running back from the class of 2023, and he is just ridiculously uber talented. He's a guy that, Brooks, he's up there, but I don't think the drop-off level from Brooks to Baxter is that much. Baxter has proven over these past couple games where Brooks has been hurt, he's been solid, right? Had a 100-yard rushing game last week against Iowa State, did Baxter. He's a guy to watch on the Texas offense. Another guy to watch on the Texas offense, it's in the passing game, Xavier Worthy. There's probably 2 or 3 guys I can mention here, Adion Mitchell and others as well. But Worthy leads the way with 834 yards receiving for Texas and is just really just a guy you need to know where he is at all time. That Texas defensive line is really good, and it is anchored by T'Vondre Sweat, a guy that's probably going to be picked in the top 45 picks of the NFL draft. He's arguably the best defensive lineman in the Big 12. He is the guy that really just impacts their run game at an elite level. Again, 42 yards rushing on average the past 3 games in the Big 12 for the Longhorns. He's the key to their defense, and he is not a guy that Behren Morton wants to see coming at him with any kind of speed. Another guy that Behren Morton doesn't want to see coming into the backfield is Jalen Ford, the linebacker for the Longhorns. He leads them in tackles with 80 and is a true sideline-to-sideline guy and arguably one of the best linebackers in the country. So definitely a guy to know there. Now, in terms of the must-watch matchup for this one, it's the Texas Tech offensive line and the Texas defensive line, excuse me. Simple and plain, it comes down to this. If the Texas Tech offensive line can keep Behren Morton upright and create just minimal, lanes for Taj Brooks to run through, I think Texas Tech has a little bit better of a chance to win. That said, the Texas D-line has a chance to dictate this entire game. And I mean both what Texas Tech does offensively and Texas does offensively, because if Texas Tech can't do anything, you're just going to see a whole lot of CJ Baxter, right there. So, it's one of those deals where, to me, that's really what you're going to see with those multiple NFL prospects they have on the defensive line. And that's really the matchup you're going to have to watch. All right. Now, as for the odds in this one, it kind of varies where you're looking. I took the smallest line here, but I've seen on BetMGM it's as high as 14. So whichever way you want to go, be sure to check those lines on the betting front. But one thing is clear. The total is around 53.5 or 54.5. It's right there, right? But for me, here's my prediction. You see it at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to go Texas 34, Texas Tech 23. I think Texas Tech will come out firing in this one, but in the end, I think the Texas firepower at home with a point to prove after those Brett Yormark comments. And really, more importantly, they don't really care about those comments. They have a chance to play in the college football playoff if they beat Texas Tech and then win the Big 12 title game. I think Texas is on a mission. They handle business here and then move on to Arlington to play, well, who the hell knows at this point, with 120 some odd different scenarios in terms of the Big 12 title game. Let me know, though, down in the comments below, who do you got winning this game and your score prediction for Texas Tech at number 7 Texas. It should be a fun one. At least the environment should, especially after all the trash talking this offseason. Obviously, it worked out for Texas so far. They're having a great season, and Texas Tech, they're going bowling and fighting through some injuries, but probably not where they want to be. But, a potential upset of the number 7 team in the country, that could, really nice be a really nice cherry on top of your season, if you ask me. One more time, get those score predictions down below on the pinned comment. And if you haven't already, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long. We'll have you going through bowl season and then the recruiting cycle and everything in between. We've got you covered right here on the most engaging Texas Tech community on YouTube. Of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.